Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to see some of you here. I think that I like to start on time. You know me, I really like to start on time. I think if you're on time, let's just start. But we might need another minute to let some people log in, find the link, get their audio settings configured, all of those great things. But I'm so excited to be here with you the very first Monday in March. And I don't know how it is March. I'm not sure how that happened. My friend, one of my really good friends, has a birthday on February 29th, and she turned 10 this past weekend, and I was really sad I couldn't be with her. She's in Houston, Texas. But if you have a leap year birthday, you're celebrating the leap year, excited. And I'm just so happy to be here with you. So let's get started because we do have quite a lot to cover today. We're going to talk about selecting social media platforms, and then I'm going to give a very quick and dirty overview of the platforms. So the way I've set this week up is we're just going to really talk about the what today. We'll talk about the how to select platforms, but there's no way that we could go into exactly how to use every single social media platform. I mean, that would be like a 7-day training that would go 24 hours. So today we'll talk about the strengths and weaknesses and pros and cons of some of the major platforms. And then next week, we're going to get into content and how to best figure out the content that you're going to be sharing on social media. So let's get started. Okay. So I want to welcome all of you to the second official live event for Social Media for Social Good Academy. This is module 2. Where should we be on social media? This is kind of my fast track formula to figure out exactly where you need to be. And actually, hold on one second. I'm going to stop the video because I feel like it's very distracting to have the video. Okay. So let's go back and share it again. And then if you ask questions, I should be able to see the chat. I should be able to see the questions. I'm going to pull that up and put it on the other screen. And remember, if you have a question, I'm willing to bet that somebody else does too. So there are absolutely no stupid questions. I never think that any question that anyone asks is stupid. So I think that if you do have a question, someone else, I'm sure, has it and is afraid to ask it. So feel free to ask your questions. That's why we are live. That's why we joined this course. That's why we want to do this all together in this great community of ours. So quick recap. I'm going to go through this every week. How to get the most out of this course, show up at as many live events as possible, ask questions, schedule time. Don't get overwhelmed. Try not to get overwhelmed. There is a lot that we're going to cover today, but commit to taking just one action based on what you learned. And then please share your accomplishments, share your challenges, ask questions. I do see a lot of great engagement in the Facebook group, and I think that's wonderful. Quick recap, our next event is next Monday, the 9th at 3 p.m., and that goes into content, your social media content strategy, and I'll talk a little bit about that. In terms of today, we are going to walk through a checklist and a questionnaire that you can use to select the very best platforms for your nonprofit based on a set type of criteria. And then we're going to do a quick assessment of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Snapchat, and TikTok. Obviously, those aren't all of the social media platforms out there, but there's so many. Those are the ones I get the most questions about. And then how to create an actual work plan of daily and weekly tasks to keep you on track. So looking ahead, because like I did say, next week is about content. Today is not going to be as much of what I usually teach, which is here are how to best craft posts for Instagram, or here's 10,000 examples of what nonprofits do on Twitter. So next week is probably going to be the most popular week. That one's going to be about content, creating content, curating content, 6 pillars of content, content remixing, and tools. So it's all about content next week. So to start out this week, we all need to be on the same page and understand that it's not enough in 2020, if it ever was enough, to create a standalone social media strategy. It's certainly not enough to create just a digital strategy. So you can have some frameworks and you can have some overarching guiding principles for your digital strategy, but you can't just lump Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn together and call it a day, because each platform is dramatically different. So think of it as buying a guidebook for France when you're really going to Germany. Every single platform has distinct language, a distinct culture, a distinct etiquette, inhabitants, people that use it, properties, strengths, and weaknesses. So while certainly we can remix content, we'll talk about that next week. And if you have a fantastic story or a great photo, you can share it across platforms. You have to think of these platforms as very different places. For instance, you can use 30 hashtags on Instagram, but if you did that on Facebook, it would look very strange, right? So we really have to create an individual strategy for each platform that we're trying to use. Now, here are the questions that you're going to ask when you're figuring out, should we be on this platform? So when your board member comes to you and says, we need to be on TikTok, we need to be on Pinterest, we need to do this, we need to do XYZ, you are going to ask these questions. And I have a worksheet for you where you can fill these out for yourself for each platform that you're using. So is your target audience on this platform? That's number one. So everyone says that content is king. Content is not king. Audience is king. You can create content all day long. I could write a blog every day for 365 days a year, but if I don't know who I'm talking to and I don't have an audience to read it, it's not going to be worth very much. I mean, content for content's sake is definitely not the point of what we're doing here. So is your target audience using this platform? Can you add value on this platform? And by value, I mean, can you create and share content designed for this channel? Now, the donor experience, the community experience, all of our experiences now in 2020, they are tied up in personalization and having a completely frictionless experience. So think about using Netflix or Amazon or anywhere you shop. If you do any kind of online shopping, even if you have a rewards card, even if you have like a CVS extra care card, everything is tailored to you and everything is tailored to the experience. So if you're going to create something on Facebook and then think you can just kind of share it frictionlessly on TikTok, it's not going to happen. So can you? And the answer for some of these might be no. And so that's very important to understand when you're evaluating channels that you should be on. And do you have the capacity and resources to actually participate in this channel? Because social media, they are not billboards. These channels are not billboards. We have to participate. We have to build in time to manage messages, manage comments, and not just post and run. And do we actually have the time to learn the unique language and best practices of a new platform? Sometimes the answers might be no, and that's completely fine. But this is what you do when you strategically evaluate a new tool that comes your way or a shiny new object that comes your way. And can you adequately analyze your work on this platform? Can you look at the insights and the analytics in order to improve? So my goal with this course is to give you the tools and the checklists and the worksheets and all of these different resources to effectively evaluate not only what you're doing, but to help you evaluate going forward, should we be jumping on these new platforms? We also really have to understand why people use social media. I think this gets lost in the shuffle because we were sold a bill of goods. And I referred to it last time in that slide where I showed the underpants gnomes from South Park, which is their business model is, this is South Park. If you don't watch South Park, then I don't know, you're not going to get this reference. You probably won't think it's funny, but South Park, they had these fictional underpants gnomes, and their business model was steal underwear. Step 2, question mark. Step 3, profit. So I think that's what happens to a lot of us when we go on social media. We were sold a bill of goods. We were sold some snake oil. We were told, let's just create a bunch of platforms and the money's going to roll in, the engagement's going to roll in. But we do have to remember we're fighting against the current, because most people use social media to connect with their friends and family and to share their own experiences, to share what matters to them, and to express their own identity. So we do have to understand that in the context of choosing platforms. So I want to give you this little rubric for the 4 areas of social media management. And obviously, if you need more time for content creation or you need more time for interaction, take it. But in my experience, research is going to consume about 10% of your time. And that means whether you follow industry newsletters, whether you look at what other people are doing, you follow keywords on Instagram or Twitter, you're listening to your audience. Research just means compiling information that you might think is valuable to either expound upon or to share with your audience. Content creation and curation, that is, and that's what we're going to focus on next week. Creation and curation, that means the taking of the photos, the taking of the videos, the writing of the captions. Curation is finding the best content that's not created by you, created by another source, and sharing it with your audience. I think that that is 60% of your time. And then interaction. We forget about interaction. Let's answer those comments. Let's answer those questions and following others. We are not Taylor Swift. I don't know what her Instagram account is right now, but at last count, it was something like 10 million followers and she follows 0 people. We are not her. We can't do that. We have to have a strategy for building our followers on our own accounts by following other people and interacting and showing up. This is not a billboard. Social media is not a billboard. And you do have to commit to interact and show up. Also, measurement and analysis needs to be at least 10% of what you're doing. Because if you're not taking stock of what you're doing and seeing if it works, how can you possibly improve and do more of what works and do less of what doesn't work? So my advice for the small nonprofits, I always think less is more. And you know that about me. Master one network and then move to another, and then use the set criteria to choose. So I hope you can see this. This is your Module 2 platform evaluation worksheet. You got it inside your email. It's going to be inside your course platform. All of these different questions where you can just easily add a channel and ask these. So you can do this with a committee, you can do this by yourself, but it's just going to help you strategically determine, are we in the right places and do we need to be in other places that we might not be in before? Another great example of leveraging all of these different platforms based on their strengths and based on the pros is the IRS. Now, who would have thought that the IRS was an exemplary use of social media? But what I love that they do is that they don't just sort of rehash what they're doing on every channel. They use every channel very strategically. So YouTube, they do videos in several different languages. IRS Twitter is for announcements. IRS Facebook is useful information for the general public. LinkedIn is for something. Instagram is for certain things. They have a podcast. I don't know if I would listen to the IRS podcast. I never have. They have several podcasts. That's kind of crazy. But they list all of their different channels and they tell you why, and they tell you the audience that it's designed for. So they're not really just kind of rehashing. So clearly you're not going to be on as many channels as the IRS, but I thought that was a good model for how best to leverage the strengths and weaknesses of each channel. So now we're going to go through a quick primer on 7 popular social media platforms. Now, I didn't include YouTube, or maybe I might have included YouTube, but YouTube is not, to me, a traditional social media site, because social media to me is a two-way street where you're listening to your friends and family, you're commenting, you're interacting. People go to YouTube as a search engine. So YouTube is the number 2 search engine owned by the number 1 search engine, which is of course Google, but they don't use it to connect with friends and family. Like, do you connect with friends and family on YouTube? No. You use it to discover things and explore different things. So to me, it's not a traditional social media site. It's more of a search engine, but that's just me. Okay. So I want to give you a few statistics about Facebook, just so you are armed and ready. If you do need to go to your board, you need to go to your higher ups. Just saying, young people are not on Facebook anymore. Well, yeah, I mean, they might be migrating and using other channels, but they still are on Facebook. And baby boomers are on Facebook. Baby boomers are on Instagram. Baby boomers are the fastest growing segment in a lot of these different social media sites. And as you can see, I mean, Facebook is still the number 1. Like, we can talk all day about how Facebook is dying, Facebook's irrelevant, Facebook is dead. I know my daughter, I mean, she's 10, so she's not your target demographic. I'm sure she has no disposable income at all. She calls it mom book, and she's not on Facebook. I would not let my 10-year-old be on Facebook, but that's what her friends call it. So despite all of the news coverage and what you might have heard, it is still hugely, hugely popular. It is huge market share. And I mean, it's basically a revolution in the way that humans connect with each other and find information. So I don't see Facebook as a tool. I see it as a complete revolution in the way that we all are experiencing humanity. You can love it or hate it, but I don't know. And actually, I'm not Facebook's biggest fan, because I've been on it for, how long have I been on it? I've been on it for probably about 15 years, which is so hard to imagine. And I do see my use of Facebook changing, but I see my use of social media changing. Everything changes, everything evolves. So it is important to take a look at these platforms year over year. The features for nonprofits that we need to consider, obviously groups. Facebook's shift to privacy is going to increase the importance of groups on the platform, business pages, which I'm sure we all have, and then fundraisers. So in terms of business pages, some of the strengths, I mean, the strength for business pages is that the ad targeting features can be very useful. And this is really your place on Facebook, where you're going to establish, what you stand for, and you're going to be talking to the widest group of people. But obviously the weaknesses are that organic reach has plummeted, and it's getting harder and harder to get traction on Facebook. So, I'm just saying all of this I'm trying to be platform agnostic here. All of this you need to weigh for your own organization as to whether or not you want to pursue Facebook or pursue other avenues. So the best type of content on Facebook, on all social media, really is video. Live streaming video, VOD, which is video on demand. This is video that you directly upload into Facebook. That's not sharing a link to an outside website. Links to outside websites do not work. Facebook obviously doesn't want to direct you to an outside website. I'm not sure who watched the Super Bowl. I did not watch the Super Bowl, but I did know that Facebook invested a lot of money advertising Facebook groups. So I'm not sure if this is the right avenue for your organization, but I do know that Facebook groups are growing in popularity and they get a lot more engagement than pages. But that's because they're built around a cause and an issue, and they're usually driven by citizens, by people, not by organizations and brands. So if you're considering starting a Facebook group, it would have to be around a cause or an issue. It can't be around your organization, because it cannot be promotional or it's not going to work. And then obviously Facebook fundraising tools have taken the world by storm. I could do a 3-hour workshop just on Facebook fundraising tools. But the questions that I have for you today, I actually just went to the peer-to-peer fundraising forum in Austin, and spoke about the future of fundraising. And there's so much resistance to Facebook fundraising tools. And to me, I think it's funny because I just have a few questions. So do you want to reach a brand new audience? Probably yes. Do you want to expand your reach? Do you want to reach your Facebook fans, friends, and family? I probably say yes. And do you want to receive unrestricted funds? So if you want all of those three things, then Facebook fundraising tools are kind of the best avenue. They're definitely the best avenue to do all of those things. So we can't have it all. We can't have everything. We can't have all of those things and the donor data and all the contact information and every single piece of information about anyone that's ever given to us. So we need to weigh the pros and cons and the strengths and weaknesses. So a lot of you are probably signed up for Facebook fundraising tools. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. The strengths are that you can reach a brand new audience. It's incredibly easy to use. People trust it now. They see it. 45 million people have given to it. You can collect donations pretty frictionlessly, which people are used to in our consumer driven environment. We're used to just tapping on the Amazon app and buying in 2 clicks, and then there are no fees. And then the only weakness really is that, first of all, you have to evaluate if you want to set up shop like this on Facebook, but you're not going to get information on these third-party donors who give to someone else's Facebook fundraiser. And then the content that really works, because I do see Facebook fundraising kind of being saturated. I do see the market getting saturated eventually with all of these people creating Facebook fundraisers. So the ones that are going to really stand out will feature a personal story and a personalized appeal. It's not enough to just say, hey, it's my birthday, give to this cause anymore. Okay, Twitter. What are some statistics? That's my least favorite word. I can't say it. Statistics. It's a great tool if you're looking to connect with a specific type of people. It's good for time-sensitive and urgent issues. It's good if you want to use it as a search engine. It's fantastic as a search engine. 24% of US adults use Twitter. And it's not like Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn. You don't have to have separate accounts. Everything is just a business account. So the key with Twitter is that it works like the fast-paced newsroom of the internet. It's driven by news and current events. It's a powerful search engine. People use hashtags, people tag specific accounts, and they follow trending topics. The weaknesses is that for small local nonprofits that are not based on urgent, timely issues and that aren't commenting on trending topics, and they don't have their a lot of their issues in the news, is that it can be time consuming and it does require a lot of work. So you need to evaluate whether or not you want to be on Twitter based on the strengths and weaknesses. And the best content, videos and posts, hashtags, tagging relevant accounts. So all of this is to say you need to evaluate thoroughly whether or not you can create an individual strategy for each one of these platforms if you decide to adopt them. Some of you might be like, okay, forget Twitter, forget Instagram, that's fine, or forget Facebook. With Instagram, what excites me about Instagram is that it's the only social media site that's growing. It's not stagnating. And people do go to Instagram to discover things. So it's becoming more and more of a discovery platform. And people go there to engage. And of course, the younger demographic is on Instagram. So if you can tie everything back to your goals, what are you trying to achieve with social media? Where is your audience that you're trying to engage? Then you will best be able to evaluate these individual platforms and figure out if you should be there and set up shop there. So if you are a nonprofit setting up shop on Instagram, you do need to have an Instagram business account, because that way you'll be able to get access to insights and you'll get access to the ad platform. But it is important to know, we know this, people go to Instagram to like photos and comment on photos. So that might be a weakness for you if you don't have a strong visual presence. And Instagram stories are huge and exploding in popularity. So there's an untapped opportunity there by a lot of organizations to kind of cause a splash and reach your audience where they are. A lot of people love Instagram stories. You can also add the donate button onto your profile, and you can add the donation feature into Instagram stories. So a weakness might just be time, and that success means eye-catching visuals and engaging captions. The best content, photos with text overlay, beautiful graphics, landscape shots, photos of people, a beautiful, interesting photo always wins on Instagram. Always, always, always. So in terms of Instagram stories, this is a feature that I'm going to talk a lot about next week when I get into content and how to create content, because this is the humanizing, connecting content, lifting the veil, showing people what you do. And it's not great just because of the donation sticker. It's great because you can actually bring people behind the scenes, and it's not as cultivated, it's not as aesthetically pure as the Instagram feed. Okay. LinkedIn, just in our quick review of platforms, LinkedIn is the dark horse of the social media stable for sure. I have seen exponential growth on my LinkedIn profile, and when I post to LinkedIn, I see triple, quadruple the engagement on LinkedIn that I get from Facebook. Now, who knows why that is? And they're probably going to screw it up because everything good can't stay forever. But LinkedIn right now, if you're posting high quality posts, if you're posting videos, if you're posting things that truly matter to your followers, you're going to see a lot of engagement. Also, more higher income populations tend to congregate on LinkedIn, and people that have interests in volunteering, board service, and mentoring opportunities. LinkedIn is such a huge opportunity for nonprofits that I just don't think we're leveraging. So they recently released new features, live video streaming, voice messaging, and there are two main ways that you can connect with your followers or your fans or build a following: your personal profile and your company page. So if you are a development director or a marketing director, an executive director, definitely link your personal profile to your company page, because it works just like Facebook. You have a Facebook profile and you have a Facebook page, you have a LinkedIn profile and a LinkedIn page. I don't see as much engagement around company pages. I see much more engagement around personal profiles, which makes sense because it's social media. We want to connect with people. We want to connect with humans and actual individuals. We don't want to be marketed to, but it's certainly important to have a LinkedIn company page presence. The strength is just that it's so much more professionally based and it's so much more specific. So people don't go there to bicker about politics, and they don't go there to post what they ate for lunch. They go there to build their careers and to network and really to market. So if you're not on LinkedIn, huge opportunity there, but you have to evaluate against this criteria. The only weakness that I can see is that they don't spend as much time on it, and it's not set up for random meaningless scrolling like the other sites. People go there with a pretty focused goal. Video really stands out. Uploading documents, I found PDFs or Word documents really gets a lot of engagement. So who knows? We don't know anything about these algorithms other than what they tell us publicly, which is not very much. Now, Pinterest. Pinterest, I also think, is an incredibly unused market for nonprofits. So Pinterest is growing hugely, and Pinterest does not have any of that horrible press coverage that Facebook does, Twitter does, Instagram does. Pinterest is just like a go-to happy place, 250 million active monthly users, 81% female. Now, from what I know in terms of studies, it's clearly a generalization, but data can back me up. Women are more likely to give. And when women find a nonprofit they click with, they give more and they're more loyal. So it might be worth exploring Pinterest because it's 81% female. So for your nonprofit, if you decide that you want to explore Pinterest, you want to create a business account. And the best thing about Pinterest is that you don't have to create all the content yourself. It's not like Instagram where it's really hard to share other people's content. You can create pin boards full of value for your audience with content that you don't even create. And that's because the pin boards are organized around specific topics or ideas. And the other great thing about Pinterest is that people go there to discover new things. It's aspirational. It's who we want to be. It's a vision board. And the only weakness I can really see is that it's a visual platform. You need to be active. You can't just pin once a month and expect to get any followers. If you have infographics, if you have any kind of long vertical images, if you have YouTube videos, you can pin videos directly from YouTube. So I am considering, I have to write another blog post. I have to do an ebook, but I'm considering kind of, pushing Pinterest for nonprofits because it's such a happy place, but it represents aspirations. So it's who we want to be. And it's also very transactional. People follow accounts based on what they want to buy, based on what they want to spend money on. That's the mindset that they're in on Pinterest. So I think that it's definitely worth exploring for your organization. If you're getting sick of the other platforms or if you're wanting to just look to dive into another pool. Okay, I want to talk quickly about Snapchat and TikTok. So with Snapchat, I think the mindset that we need to get into is that some of these sites are just fun. They're just fun and people love them. And there's not a way to specifically monetize them yet. And that's fine because we can't make everything about monetization. We have to eventually make some things about creating community and building that shared identity with our donors. So Snapchat is not going anywhere. And they actually did a study and they found that 95% of Snapchatters say the app makes them feel happy. I do not think that's true for Facebook and Twitter. 95% of Facebook people say the app makes them happy. I can't imagine that. So people use this just because they like it. And what I love is that Snapchat is much more for people on the go. So there's a great primer at nptechforgood.com, how to get your nonprofit started if you want to, kind of play around. And people use Snapchat. They don't use it to aimlessly scroll on their couch. They use it to document experiences. So they use it on the go, they use it commuting, they use it traveling, they use it while they're shopping, they use it while they're out. It's just an interesting way of thinking about it. So as we go through these really basic primers, I want to encourage you to think about these sites and how people use them. And like, for instance, just to go back to this, if you're a museum or a brick and mortar or somewhere where you want people when they're on the go to to interact with you, maybe if you're a land trust or a historical society or something where people physically are, or you want people physically to go there, or maybe you run a conference or you run an event, that's where people are using Snapchat, and that's how you can encourage them to use it. Now, just because Snapchat doesn't have a donate button yet, I don't want you to write it off. Just because TikTok doesn't have a donate button yet, I don't want you to write it off. These are all places to experiment and to build community. So I recently read, do I have it here? I have it here. I hope you can see this. The British farmer who didn't know his wholesome TikTok account was going viral. So this is a great story. I will put it in the chat so you can all read it. I just read this today. So what happened is, I don't know how to pronounce that, Cane Hill Countryside Center. It's a charity. And he just started posting on TikTok because he liked it and it was fun. And he went completely viral because he just was so authentic and just so genuine about it. And the other thing is, if you want to translate it into ROI, so let me see. He says, later on that they had PayPal donations from the US and they create cards and paintings. They've sold on TikTok. So he can prove definite ROI from the platform. But just because there's not a click to your donate page, or just because there's not a click to your donate button on the site yet, all of this is probably coming. I'm really willing to bet that it's all coming. Doesn't mean you don't want to build up an audience for the time that it comes. So Kari asked a good question. So we can set up a Snapchat, encourage the use of filters without posting on a regular basis. Yeah, so in terms of Snapchat, I mean, if you have events, you can create a geo filter and encourage people to use Snapchat during your event. So I can get you some examples, but my friend Josh, who's the director of mission communication at Susan G. Komen, Florida, they just did Race for the Cure in Florida, and he set up a geo filter for the race. So when people were using Snapchat, they could swipe through the filters and the lenses, and they would have a specifically branded one. And they could share it to any of their other social platforms, but that created a lot of interest with their friends and family who said, oh, I didn't know you were at the race, and I didn't know this was an opportunity. So it creates exposure and it creates brand awareness. So you definitely can do that. I mean, there's ways to experiment with creating individual lenses. I can't imagine that's cheap, but if you feel like your audience is on Snapchat, you want to build up your audience, there's a lot of ways to do it. Same with TikTok. The thing that I'm trying to say is that if you feel like your audience is on any of these platforms, just because they don't have the donate button doesn't mean don't build an audience for when they do, because it's definitely going to help. So Kari, I will get you information on exactly what Josh did, because even though there's Susan G. Komen, he runs the Florida chapter and he does all of the marketing himself. So they're very small, and I will get you that information on how he did it and what ended up happening. And I know when you do that, you can actually get results, and you can get, I'm just gonna write this down, Komen Snapchat filter. You can actually see how many people used it, and how many people referred it to their friends and that kind of thing. So in terms of TikTok, they have an entire department that's set up to promote nonprofits, which leads me to believe, I'm pretty sure there's definitely going to be a donate button on TikTok and Snapchat. There's a donate button everywhere, because that's the thing that people want to do. So with TikTok, you might not like it for yourself, but if one of your goals is reaching the young demographic, younger donors, then you need to be on there. If that's not part of your strategy and your goal, then, don't worry about it. So just be strategic. Don't write these platforms off immediately. Remember what social media was created for, and then carefully evaluate where you need to be versus where you want to be, and always go where your audience spends time. So I showed you the platform evaluation worksheet. I want you to choose 3 potential channels, or channels you're on now, or channels you want to be on, and figure out how you can evaluate them, answer yes or no questions on the chart. Okay, good. We're actually right on time now. So the second piece of today's training is creating your work plan. So when you're creating your work plan for social media, after you figure out your goals and your audience and your platforms, then you really need to break it down into specific tasks. And this is where the rubber meets the road. This is what you actually need to be doing every single day, every single week, to really move the needle on your goals. So each goal is going to have different tasks, and some are going to overlap. I'm going to show you what this looks like. My whole point with this exercise is that I don't like to get into tasks and tools first. I even think like doing the second webinar focused on tasks is too soon, but I know people get antsy, and I know people want to get started right away. So That's why I'm doing tasks. Normally with a client, tasks would be like step 5 of our work together because we have a lot of other things to figure out, and goals are the most important thing. So this is what it looks like when you create a strategic plan for your social media marketing and a work plan. So your goals, these are some examples of goals that either you identified or I've identified with clients. And so as you can see, I match the goals with some platforms that can best be used to achieve the goals or platforms that you're already using, and then tasks. So as you can see, if you pick a million goals, you're going to have a million platforms, and then you're going to have 10 million tasks. So less is always more. So maybe one of your goals is, let's look at the middle. Let's look at the middle section, shed light on the complex issues that we tackle. I think that is a very admirable goal for a lot of us. So maybe the platforms you want to use, because you have discerned which platforms you decided are best for your organization: Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and then what are some of the tasks required to actually achieve the goal on the desired platform. These are just examples, and of course, the tasks are completely dependent on your capacity and what you think you can achieve. So maybe you want to share testimonials on Instagram. Maybe you want a weekly video series, because if you look at Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, what content works best? If you're going to evaluate the strengths and the weaknesses of the platforms, video works best across these 3 platforms. And then on Instagram, maybe testimonials. So let's look at this. The third one, make a compelling case for giving. So maybe you want to use Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. You've done your assessment. You figured out these are the 3 best channels for you. Then your compelling case for giving. You want to share stories. Maybe you want to put the donate sticker on your stories. You want to hold a training for staff and board members so that you can create the compelling case. Maybe you want to do a video series. So obviously these are not prescriptive. They're just examples to give you some ideas of how goals, platforms, and tasks fit together. So when you create your work plan, I want you to limit the number of tasks. So write out all of the potential tasks, and then you have to prune, because really you can't do everything and you're going to get overwhelmed and you're going to burn out. The second piece of your work plan, you're going to estimate how much time each task is going to take. And I would double the estimate of time if I were you. And then estimate any kind of budget. So this is what it looks like. I'm sorry if this is, this looks small. Can I zoom this in more? Hold on, let me see. I don't think I can zoom this. I hope you can see this. So you can get the slides. I put the slides already in your course platform, and I will email them to you. And you can definitely email me for the slides. And then also I have this worksheet for you in your course materials and in your email. So for me, this seems like a lot of work, but I know for a lot of you, you do have to get buy-in from higher ups. You might have to work with a team. You might just have to convince people that you have too much to do in a day. So I really think this time batching works really well. Not time batching, this time assessment. So say you want to share one video each week, you have to estimate the time and you have to put that in your calendar. 2 hours to research and prepare the video, 30 minutes to shoot the video, even if it's with your phone, 1 hour to edit. And then what is your budget? So if you want to create that weekly video series, what does that mean? What's the time estimate and what's the budget? So when I break this out for you, this all goes together. So you can see that goes, let's see, goals, platforms, and tasks goes with tasks, time estimate, and budget. So there's a work plan spreadsheet. If you work like this, your brain might not work like this. This is kind of how my brain works. I like to have everything kind of laid out. I put the goals and platforms and tasks, and then you can fill these in. Let me see, I might highlight that for you. And then the tasks, time estimate, and budget. So for me, I just know the bosses that I've had, and I know the way that I have to work. And then also when people are coming at you with a lot of different ideas, or maybe you're working on a committee, or you have a supervisor or team member that is throwing a lot of tasks at you, I think laying it out like this can work really well and be really effective, because people are able to see, oh, it's not just an idea. It actually takes this many hours and this much budget to accomplish that. Okay. All right. Well, I'm right at time, so I would love to see your questions. Everyone's very quiet today, which is interesting. Maybe you're a little overwhelmed. I promise we're going to pull it all together in the content section next module, because I want to talk about what you're going to learn next week. You're going to learn the kind of content that your audience will love and how to know, how to build your following, how to keep momentum, and my favorite, which are my 6 pillars of social media content that not only attracts the right people to you, but engages the people that you have. My content remix recipe, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you have an awesome piece of content, you can definitely remix it. And then I'm going to go over some tools to help you with content creation, curation, and organization. Oh, okay. So I see Kari was so funny. It's Carrie, is that if I see Kari, I know a girl from my childhood, and her name is pronounced Kari, and it's Kari. So I'm sorry, I should have clarified. So you're Carrie, and you live in South Carolina. Awesome. And thank you so much. I'm so glad you love this class. I'm happy that it's helpful. All right, so make sure you're typing in your questions. This is what we're going to look at next week. Quick syllabus review. I want you to take some time to look at what we talked about this week, to thoroughly evaluate where you are, where you might consider being, create your work plan. And this is what's coming up. We're going to do the social media content strategy, your social media calendar, tracking efforts with analytics, and then implementation week. Then in April, how do we possibly manage all of this stuff, which I know is incredibly challenging. And I want to see all of you in the Facebook group. Another quick note, this Facebook Q&A, I'm going to be in the right time zone. It's at 4:30 p.m. and it's going to be on Thursday, and I'm definitely going to be in there, and I'm looking forward to seeing everything. And reminder, you don't have to ask a question about what we've tackled this week. If you have questions about anything else, things we've learned, things that we might tackle, that's helpful too. Ooh, Joanne, you have a great question. At some point, can you talk about the pros and cons of using a phone camera for video versus a fancy video camera and equipment? So I think it really completely depends on the context in which you're sharing the video. So if you're sharing a video at your 50th anniversary gala and you're charging $200 a plate, then you're going to use fancy video camera and equipment, and you're probably going to hire a video company, right? If you're doing a capital campaign, or you're doing a campaign where you're trying to raise, $10,000, you might want to use a video production company or a fancy video camera. But if you're taking an Instagram story, if you're doing a live video, if you're in the field, if it's off the cuff, a phone camera is absolutely going to get you everything that you need. And actually, I have a really good resource for you. My friend Chris Strub, I'm going to put this link in the chat. He live streams giving days, and he does everything DIY with like a GoPro and his phone. So he wrote this article on Medium, What's in His Bag, and it's all DIY video equipment. So you definitely can DIY it, but it just depends on context. All right, Carrie says, what are your thoughts on WhatsApp? I mean, if your audience is on WhatsApp, if your audience is international, but WhatsApp, to me, I don't think it's the best marketing platform, because it's primarily a messaging platform. And I do know that Facebook is going to implement not like a donate button, but you can share money on WhatsApp. So if you do have a big international donor base and supporter base, it might be worth looking into. Personally, I don't use WhatsApp. I'm not sure what the benefits are for marketing, but it just depends on your user base and if they're on there. Okay. Oh, I love, Catherine, what you said. I appreciate all this information. It helps me see how much work we should do to make sense of our social media efforts. It's a relief to see a way forward, even though our time is ridiculously lacking. I'll come back over and over. Well, you have lifetime access, so come back as much as possible. All right, let's see. Where can I learn about Instagram stories? I've been following some people on Instagram, hoping I learn this by osmosis. I'm not, so you mean creating Instagram stories? You just have to play around with them. You just have to test them. So when I first learned about the feature, I did what you did. I followed people for weeks. So Instagram stories are these, oh, it's so hard without being able to show my phone to you. Well, when we talk about creating content, I can go into my phone and show you how to do them. They're basically 24-hour videos and photos, and they only show up in your feed, and they're very ephemeral and authentic and in the moment. So to me, I would just watch a ton of them, and they're not those wonderfully curated, aesthetic, beautiful photos that show up in your Instagram feed. Your Instagram feed is like your best of. Think of it as like your greatest hits, and your Instagram stories are like the B-sides of what you're doing. That's my best analogy for it. Oh my goodness, let me see. Laura says, I'm the founder of a young nonprofit that serves at-risk youth. We help them live more meaningful lives. Privacy issues are fierce, which means sharing pics and videos are tough. Any thoughts and ideas on how to handle? Yep. Follow Plumber Youth Promise. I am typing in the chat. Amira Incorporated. Those are my two go-to organizations in terms of they have complete confidentiality issues. Plumber Youth Promise deals with children in foster care, and Amira helps rehabilitate people that have been in sex trafficking. They both do a stellar job on social media, and they do not ever share stories. So they do either stories from a third party, so the executive director is telling the story, or the development director, but they don't actually do like client facing to camera. So I do recommend checking both of them out for some ideas, and they're very small organizations too. Ooh, Jennifer says, one of the best ways to learn how to maximize Instagram, especially stories, is to allow college students to do a takeover of our account. I love that, because then you're going to get new followers because they're going to promote it, and you're going to get all of their followers, the attention of all of their followers, which is really cool. All right. Heather says, in terms of creating a Marcom plan, how much of social media should be part of that? It depends on time and resources. Is there a formula? There is not a formula. So I can't, every Marcom team is different. You could have 10 people, you could have one person, you could have a person that is development/marketing. So I can talk about when I was a development/marketing director and I worked at a very small organization. We actually did have a $10 million budget, but 90% of that was grants and restricted, and that didn't encompass the probably 90% of our programs. So 90% of our budget went to 10% of what we actually did. But to me, I think it just depends on your organizational goals. Like, what are your goals for the year? And do you want to reach young people? Is that one of your strategic goals? Do you want to reach young professionals? Do you want to reach a brand new audience? So if your goals are, we need to raise $500,000, then I would say, let's look at major gifts first. Let's look at pounding the pavement and calling people and doing like your traditional capital campaign kind of strategies. But if you want to increase visibility and get in front of new people and constantly be relevant and engage in new networks, then it definitely should be a piece of it. So look at your overall organizational goals and see where social media could fit in and enhance what you're already doing rather than kind of displace something that's working. Okay. Bethany says, this is something that's very common. I have a hard time understanding when I should use Instagram stories versus Instagram posts. Now, the best way I can frame it is Instagram stories. That's your greatest hits album. Not Instagram. Oh my God. Instagram feed, your feed, what you're putting in your feed. And I'm going to have to show you. Hold on. That is what is, I'm just going to use myself, I guess. So for me, I don't post every single day. And also my Instagram is definitely not the best Instagram out there, but I always post if I have a great photo. I have to have a great photo. And then my stories are like behind the scenes or things that I'm sharing from other people. So for instance, I think that the nonprofits that do really well are the ones that have a very curated and beautiful feed, which are the main posts that stay on your feed forever. And your stories kind of disappear and they lift the veil and they give people a better idea about what you're about and your human side. And I think that it works as like your B-roll, your B-sides. So your Instagram feed, that is what your documentary is, your movie. And your Instagram stories are almost like what ended up on the cutting room floor. Okay, anonymous attendee. How do you define an audience when you're looking for donors or donations? We're happy to get donations from anyone, so it's difficult to limit or define who we want to reach because really we want to reach anyone and everyone who may be willing to give. Great question. The problem is that anyone and everyone is not going to want to give to you. So what makes you different and what is the compelling problem that you're solving? So for me, I have my charities that I support because they are part of my values and my worldview and what I believe in. And there are some charities I'm never going to support because they go against my worldview. So if you are the NRA, for example, don't ask me for a donation because I'm not going to give you a donation. So you need to figure out what is the thread running through your donors. What do they care about? What is the problem they're trying to solve? And then where do they congregate? Where are they online? Where do they like to spend time? What magazines do they read? And then talk to your donors, talk to them and say, what could help us create a more compelling case? What could make you share with your friends? And a lot of times people are going to congregate with other people that have very similar viewpoints, very similar worldviews and values and shared ethics. So starting with your current donors and expanding out tends to work best than just simply targeting a bunch of strangers. Because I know we all would obviously take money from anybody, but we need to be more focused than that. Okay. Yeah, so Laura says, love the college takeover idea. Was that Carrie? Oh no, Jennifer. So Jennifer, could you share in the Facebook group how you did that or what that looks like? Because Laura wants more guidance on specific tactics. Did they reach out? So I would love, Jennifer, if you could do that. Jennifer and Laura, connect in the group. Or actually, Laura, if you don't see it in there, just go in the group and ask. And I'll make sure to tag Jennifer in that. Okay. Jennifer found an Instagram page, Educate Girls Globally. I love that. Oh, this is awesome. This is fantastic. I'm sharing right now as we speak. That's amazing. Okay, wonderful. I did want to end right at 4. I really want to respect your time. If you do have other questions, as I always say, I'm in the group. I will put the link in the chat. I'm sure you are all in there. And I'm definitely going to do that Facebook Live right on time inside the group on 4:30 p.m. on Thursday. And I would love to see all of you. I love this idea of sharing resources. If you've done an Instagram takeover, I want to do a roll call for anyone that's done that in the group. If you're looking for examples on anything like Insta stories, Insta posts, I'm actually going to write that down. I'm going to do a roll call in the group. I'm just writing this down to see if other people have resources. I have a million resources on Instagram stories, but I do think it's always better to hear from your peers and see examples of what other people are kind of doing in the trenches. So, all right. Well, it was a pleasure having all of you today. Hi, Jared. I'm so glad you're here. And I'll love to see you next week. And I'll love to see you in the Facebook Live Q&A and in the group. So take care until then. And yeah, let me know how it goes. All right. Take care.